Hello again, everyone. It is right at 4 o'clock. We're going to give it at least another minute for others who may be trying to join, and then we'll get started. Excellent afternoon, everyone. It is 4:01, and we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Yvonne Bean. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Columbia Housing, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our discussion this afternoon on the repositioning of our public housing portfolio, particularly Lewis Scott Court, also known as our Eastover property, using the rental assistance demonstration program. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Cindy Herrera, who is our Senior Vice President of Development, to provide you all with an update on our redevelopment efforts. Cindy.
Thank you, Ms. Bean. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you joined us again today. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the Eastover property and what we propose to do there. Before we get started, I'd like to have Ms. McRoberts address some housekeeping so we can make sure we can get everybody's questions included. Lee?
Great. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. We appreciate everybody being here tonight. Just a couple of things. We are recording this session, and it will be available on our YouTube channel within about 24 hours. We have also set up a web page on our website, columbiahousingsc.org, under the Housing tab called RAD Resources. And that page will house all of the videos, the written question and answers. They're generated during the question and answer period, and any other relevant information about the RAD conversion. So definitely take a look at that. Let your neighbors know that might not have been able to join us a couple weeks ago or tonight that the information is available and out there for anyone to look at. We are keeping everyone on mute. If you have questions that come up during the presentation, please put those in the chat. The chat can be located on your toolbar at the bottom of the screen, a little chat bubble that says chat, and you just can type those in and we'll feed those to Ms. Herrera after the presentation. That's it for me, Ms. Herrera, so thank you.
All right, we'll get started now. Thank you all again. So just a little bit of kind of recap. This discussion today is to talk about the conversion of the Eastover community to the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. So just a reminder, what is RAD exactly? It is a HUD program that began back in 2012. And the purpose of it is to take the properties out of the public housing program and convert them to the Section 8 platform through the use of project-based vouchers. The reason that this is necessary and that HUD created the RAD program is because they've identified that across the country, the public housing is in need of repairs for more than $60 billion. And historically, Congress has not allocated enough money for the public housing program that would allow housing authorities to be able to make those repairs. And so by taking the properties out of the public housing program and moving them to the Section 8 platform, it will allow us to be able to go out and borrow private money from lenders or from investors that will allow us to either rehab the property and make major repairs or do new construction. So we'll talk a little bit about what we propose to do at Lewis Scott Court. We've assessed the properties preliminarily, and we've determined that they can be substantially rehabbed. Now, when I say substantially rehabbed, that means basically giving you new units, because the major renovations will include new kitchens with new appliances, including a dishwasher and built-in microwaves, We're going to do new bathrooms, and we're going to add in-unit washers and dryers. So that's very exciting that we can give you these new modern appliances and new modern conveniences. In addition to that, we're going to do new flooring. We're going to replace heating and air conditioning, the HVAC units as needed, and the hot water heaters as needed. Some of those have been replaced, so some of them are newer, so we won't have to replace all of them. And then we're going to do new doors where we need it. We're going to paint all the units, and we're going to replace the roofs as needed as well. We'll also be doing a little bit of spiffing up on the outside of the properties. We'll be putting some shutters and some landscaping and some things that will make the outside and the curb appeal look a lot better as well. So what exactly does this mean for you as we go forward with these renovation plans? We're going to schedule the construction so that it would be done in phases. This will allow us to minimize the relocation that has to be done, and there'd be fewer people that would have to move off of the site. What we will do is we will create some vacancies within the property. As people move out, we will not reoccupy, and then we'll have some vacancies when we get started, and we'll just move people within those vacancies. So we might have, when we get ready to get started, there might be 5 or 6 vacancies. So the contractor would start with fixing those units, and then we would move people to new units as the work gets done. So hopefully most of you will only have to move one time. Some of you may have to move more than once because we may not have the right size units to get started with. But and one of the things under RAD that is a requirement is that we have to move you to the most appropriate size unit for your family. We do want to reassure you that the RAD requirements guarantee that you will have a unit at the site. Nobody will be displaced, and you will have a unit. What will happen is when the rehab work is done, all of the units will be under vouchers instead of public housing. One of the advantages to converting to RAD for the tenants is that you then will have the ability after 1 year to request what's called a choice mobility voucher. So after you live in the RAD unit for 1 year, you can request a voucher to move any place that you would like to move. Right now, if you move out of your public housing, your housing assistance does not go with you. But once we convert all the units under RAD, that choice mobility will give you an option to get a voucher when one becomes available. So that'll be an option that you'll have available. We did talk about that a little bit last time, but I wanted to highlight that again because that's a big advantage for you as the tenants. So the next steps, as we said, the RAD process takes a little bit of time. In order to submit our application to HUD, we've conducted these 2 meetings. Today's the second of the 2 meetings that we've held with the Eastover residents. We will submit our application to HUD hopefully by the end of this month. HUD usually takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days to approve the applications. And at that time, then we are able to start to move forward once we get the commitment. In the meantime, over the next 2 to 3 months, you will see architects and engineers that will be out visiting your property. We have engaged the professionals to be able to assess all the detail of each and every apartment so that we can refine the detailed scope of work. And then we will begin working on our side with the lender to be able to secure the mortgage and the funds that we need to do the rehab work. So we will be doing that over the next few months. We anticipate that we will be back in touch with you probably sometime after the first of the year, in which we'll let you know as soon as we get HUD's approval. And we'll have a meeting to talk more in detail about the work that will be done and a little bit more about the schedule and what will happen. But we will keep you informed as we go through this process. We hope to be able to be ready to start the construction just about a year from now. So we would anticipate that we would begin the construction work in about a year. And at that point in time, we would begin the process of letting people know when they're going to move and where they can move and all of the details about your temporary relocation. So I'm going to end the presentation at this point, and then we're going to open it up to questions. Just a reminder, as Ms. McRoberts said, this information will all be available on the Housing Authority's website and YouTube channel for those of you that weren't able to look at it, or for you to be able to tell your neighbors how to look at this information as well. So I'll open it up there, and Ms. McRoberts will take some of the questions, and we'll try to answer any questions you have.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. That was a lot of good information. One of the first questions is, will all these new appliances and systems be energy efficient in the new units?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely. We are required, when we do this level of renovation, we have to comply with the new codes and the new requirements. And they do require that we have energy efficient appliances. In addition to that, we'll be making sure that the units themselves are more energy efficient by putting in more insulation and making sure that the doors and everything is as efficient as possible. And that's a basic requirement, but we would want to do that anyway to make sure that we keep utility bills as low as possible.
Great, great. What about amenities on the site? What sort of things will be available for residents after this renovation is done?
Yeah, well, our primary focus will be on the units and the buildings, but we hope to have enough money to be able to add some amenities as well. We'd like to look at, what's currently there. There is a big community building that we will be doing some work on. We've done a little bit of work on it recently. We just recently replaced all the air conditioners at the community building. And we've got a couple of good service providers out there. Both the senior resources are there, as well as the Richland County Community Social Services are also going to be moving to the center soon. And so we've done a little bit of work. We'll be doing a little bit more work to expand the community building and make sure it's got good services available for everyone. And then we'll be looking at the site itself, and we'll determine whether we need to add in additional parking, whether we need to redo any of the streets, blacktop them, the parking spaces. We'll be looking at playground areas and other types of outdoor recreation facilities that we may be able to add for residents.
Great. You kind of briefly touched on something that kind of leads into this next question. What sort of services might be available for residents in Eastover once we get completed with the construction? Are there going to be any job training services, any employment services? Water Re has been down there over the years.
Right.
Can you speak to what might be available for the folks in Eastover?
Yeah, we're actually excited about the new partnership with Richland County and the fact that they will have offices at the community center now, and their services will include everything from social services to support to job training. They have a whole array of services that they make available to the residents. Watery will continue to have space there, as well as the senior resources for our seniors. So I think that we will have the community building will be rich with services available to the residents.
That's awesome. What about security at the site, Ms. Herrera? That's been a concern on and off over the years for the residents in Eastover. Are we going to be able to do anything as far as gating that community, adding any kind of services that might help those concerns?
Yeah, we've looked at that community. We're not sure that gating it is the correct thing to do, but we will be adding security to each residence apartments. There'll be additional security cameras. So we have a security consultant that will actually be looking at the property and making recommendations on some of the things we can do to make sure that the units are much more secure.
Will the individual units have alarms?
We're waiting to get recommendations from the security consultant to determine what level of security. There's the technology for security is extremely advanced now, and there's a lot of options that might be available. So those will be some of the things that we'll be looking at to add additional security to the properties.
Which again kind of leads into a question, will there be Wi-Fi at the site? Because a lot of these amenities are dependent on access to reliable internet service.
Yes, we are, as part of the rehabilitation that we're doing at all the properties, we are installing some hotspots. So there will be some hotspots that are available and will be available for tenants' use.
Okay, great. In as far as the relocation and the moving piece goes, if I'm at Eastover and I don't want to relocate within the community, is there going to be an option for me to go to another part of town if that's what I want?
Initially, we anticipate that all the residents will stay in the current units. As we do the rehab, we'll move you. But the important thing to remember is after 1 year, when you move into the new unit and you sign the new lease, after you've been there for 1 year, at that point, you can request a choice mobility voucher. And you will be able to take your voucher and go anywhere you want, whether it be elsewhere in Columbia, in Richland County, in someplace else in South Carolina, or to another state. You'll have the option to take that voucher wherever you want. The reason they call it choice mobility is that it allows you to be able to make housing choices outside of the public housing community. Right now, as public housing, if you were to move, you would not have any housing assistance. But once you've been there for a year and the choice mobility option becomes available, then you can select a voucher and go anywhere you'd like.
So Ms. Herrera, just let me, because this is exciting. So all you're saying is that all I have to do is stay at Lewis Scott Court for a year and I become eligible for a voucher that I can take anywhere else in the state or in the country.
That's absolutely correct. You can take it anywhere you'd like.
Will those vouchers be able to use towards home ownership if that's something I want to pursue?
Vouchers can be used towards home ownership, but I always like to caution everybody because you also have to be eligible for the home ownership program. And some of the criteria is that there's a certain income that you have to have because you have to be able to qualify for a mortgage. Even if you have a home ownership voucher, you still have to qualify for a mortgage, which means you've got to make sure that you've got good credit and a bank is willing to give you a mortgage. And the voucher is simply counted as additional income to help you support that mortgage.
Gotcha. As far as the moving goes, when it gets to that time, is Columbia Housing going to help residents pack and move across the community if they're going to a unit on the other side?
Yes.
Will they store my belongings if
Yes, we have moving companies under contract, and the moving companies will supply all of the packing materials that are needed for you to pack up your house. And for those people who are elderly and disabled, we will also actually provide packing services if you need them. And then the moving company will actually move your belongings to the new location. And if you need assistance, they will assist with unpacking as well. So all of those services will be provided by Columbia Housing. There will be no cost to the residents for any of the moving requirements.
That's great. Is there anything I should do now to start getting ready for that?
That's a really good question, because what we keep telling everybody, right? When you've lived in a place for a while, you can start to collect a lot of things. And so moving becomes difficult. So what we're encouraging everybody to do now is to start the purge process. Start going through your belongings and whatever you really don't need. And we suggest you try to get rid of it before it's time to move. That'll make the moving process a lot easier when it is time for you to move. We're going to try to give everybody as much notice as possible, but we do know that, we're going to want to keep the construction work moving. So once you're advised to move, we're going to need you to move pretty quickly within a few days. And so, but we'll give you notice in advance of when it's going to be time for you to move. But then once your unit's ready, we're going to need to get you to move pretty quickly. So anything you can do to start purging and being ready to move will certainly be helpful when it's time to move.
Will there be handicap units, disabled accessible units on the newly renovated site?
That's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. Again, when we do this level of renovation, we have to comply with new building codes. And one of those requirements is that 5% of the units will be fully accessible for people that need accessibility due to mobility impairments. And so we will have fully accessible units. If we have more residents that need an accessible unit, we certainly can go beyond that 5% number, but we have to do a minimum of 5%. And if we don't need all 5%, we'll have the units for people who may need them in the future.
Great. Is my rent going to stay the same once the units are renovated and I'm in the unit that I'm going to be in permanently?
Generally, for most residents, the rent will remain the same. The rent in the voucher program is calculated the same as it is in the public housing program. It's based on 30% of your monthly income. The only difference would be is if you are a public housing tenant that pays a flat rent, more than likely the reason you're paying a flat rent is because it's less than 30% of your income. The voucher program does not have a flat rent. So if you're paying a flat rent in public housing, it is possible that your rent will go up. But if your rent goes up by 10% or more than $25, it'll be phased in over a 3-year period. So it will not all go up at one time. It'll go in over that. It'll increase over a 3-year period.
That's great. Do I know if I'm paying a flat rent?
You should know if you're paying a flat rent, but if you have any questions, please reach out to your property manager, and your property manager can answer those questions for you. But you should know if you are paying a flat rent. At the time you do that, your property manager talks with you and says, you know, you have an option of a flat rent, and if you elected a flat rent, you should be aware of that.
Okay. I've got a question in the chat about home ownership. If I use a voucher towards home ownership, do I have to complete the courses provided by Columbia Housing?
Yes, you have to complete a pre-purchase counseling program. If you have any credit issues, you have to go through credit repair, and you must in fact complete the pre-purchase program before you can get a homeownership voucher. That's a requirement to get the homeownership voucher.
If I could just plug our homeownership program here real quickly, because Ms. Perkins does such a good job at that. Our homeownership classes are used by most lenders in the city. So we are one of the most respected and utilized homeownership education programs. So we'll have the classes up for 2022 by the end of this week, at least the schedule. I don't think we've opened, because they fill up almost as soon as we put the link out there. But if you're interested in homeownership, it's a great program to go through. Just my little plug for Tanisha Perkins and
yes,
our
does a great job.
program.
Yeah.
If anybody else has got questions, we've got about 10 minutes left in this session. Yeah, it is hard to get in those classes. That's why I say you know now that we are probably one of the only games in town as far as homeownership education goes. So we do fill up fast, but take a look on the website in the next day or so. That we may even e-blast it out. So if we've got your email address, we'll send you a copy by email, but we do have the dates for the 2022 classes. And I know Ms. Perkins will be opening those up soon, because there are classes that start in January. But if you have any other questions, please drop them in the chat. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes, see if there's anything else. But we've had some good information tonight. When do you think that everybody will hear from us again, Ms. Herrera?
You'll hear from us after the first of the year. We intend to get the applications submitted by the end of the month. And it takes HUD about 60 to 90 days to approve an application. And so once we've submitted the applications, we'll wait to hear back from HUD. Once we hear from HUD, we will circle back and let all of you know. In the meantime, as I mentioned, some of you may get notices for somebody to come in and inspect your unit, because we'll have architects and engineers that are looking at everything. And then we'll circle back after the first of the year to kind of keep you informed of the process as we move forward.
One thing that's kind of come up, and I think we may have covered it with the Eastover folks a couple weeks ago. If I'm having maintenance concerns and issues in my unit right now, what do I need to do, Ms. Herrera? What if I feel like the unit is not safe and I've got serious concerns? What do I need to do?
If you have any current problems in your unit at all, please contact your property manager and talk with your property manager, and she'll send maintenance out to do a review, and then they'll determine whether or not repairs can be made, or whether we're going to hold off and there might be a need to move you on an interim basis until such time that we can get to the more serious repairs. So if you have any serious repairs in your property, please let us know, and reach out to your property manager. And she will take a look at the situation and work with you to do what's best for you and your family.
And just as a reminder for everybody too, to take advantage of all of the things that are going to be coming available through this RAD conversion. Do I have to stay in compliance with my lease? Can I get in just a little bit of trouble?
No, you can't get in any trouble. So it's very important that you continue to pay your rent on time and that you comply with all the provisions of your lease. in order for you to be eligible for the voucher at the time that we do the conversion. So that's very important to remember, that you have to be in good standing with your lease.
Great, great, good information. We're not getting any more questions in, Ms. Herrera, so looks like it might be a good time for some closing remarks.
Great. We just want to thank all of you again for taking time to listen to the additional information we had to share this afternoon. Please reach out to your neighbors or anybody who wasn't here, and remember that the information along with the PowerPoint we did today will be on the Housing Authority's website and on the YouTube, so you'll be able to look at that information. And then just remain patient with us, because we have to work with HUD, and it does take a little bit of time to make that happen. So we know that once we hear about good things, we want them to happen quickly, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So we'll just keep you informed and stay engaged, and we will be talking to you again soon. Thank you all so much.
Sounds great. And don't forget, we've got that web page up. If you have any questions or want to revisit any of this, it's under RAD Resources under Housing.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.